Good afternoon, everyone. And in today's lecture, I'm going to talk about how vegetable could be used in various products and that you all are aware of. And will be just a kind of revision. I'm sure in at least Indian context, we use variety of chutneys at home, sauces at home, and pickles with full of spices. So whole year, and India is very famous for pickles, at least especially. So chutneys and sauces and pickles of variety of kind are prepared in India. You just walk from 1 mile to another mile, and the recipe of pickle, the ingredient of the pickle that are prepared in Indian homes are varied. They are different, they are diverse. And also commercial scale these days, you see many companies like Praveen Masale Wale or Praveen Lonchi and Rambandhu and so many. So they find a very big market, although they have also gone to international market wherein other countries are also liking this, and so therefore, in other countries also there is a demand recently have been used. So until now, there were no standard recipes, but some research has been carried out further to standardize the recipes, and the recipes have been modified to suit the local taste in the country and the consumer acceptability. Also in the other parts of the world. What I mean to say here, like we eat a lot of chili, so to like the taste from other countries, this taste have been modified, and you will see that the chili hotness or pungency has been reduced, and that's how. So various fruits are used in preparation, and most commonly one is mango. And but there are other fruits also being used like apple, apricots, plum, olives, a vegetable like turnips, cauliflower, carrots, chilies. They are all basic raw material. But apart from that, we also use onion, garlic, spices, herbs to add lots of flavor. So as I mentioned you before, as you cross a little mile, you will find the difference in these spices in the ingredient, and so the recipe varies. Like if you go to Hyderabad, the Hyderabad side pickle will taste differently. Northeastern side, if you go, the pickle taste is different. If you go to North Jammu, Kashmir, the taste is different, and in Maharashtra, the taste is different. In some of the recipes, like vinegar is used either or not. Common salt, sugar are also used, like lemon pickle. It is sweet also, sweet sour also, pungent, sweet, sour, and salty also. So these products externally, the ingredients are varied to make these products more palatable. And vinegar we use basically, vinegar is added into the pickles in which, like suppose mango. So mango is already acidic. So the addition of vinegar will not, be a good option. But if you have a carrot, or if you have a chilies or cauliflower pickle, in that if you add vinegar, it will act as a preservative. So let's begin with the first product, that is a chutney. So chutney of a good quality should be palatable, and it should also be appetizing. And how a chutney prepared, basically the chutney preparation is very similar, and that is adapted from jam, except that the spices, vinegar, and chilies are being added. Okay, so but there are sweet chutneys also and the hot chutneys also. Like some of you must have eaten in Munna canteen. So Munna ji prepares also, pumpkin sweet chutney or tomato hot chutney. So these chutneys are very similar in the preparation, like a jam, wherein you have a lot of cooking and sugar and salt. But in addition to that, spices and vinegar are also added. At home, the vinegar is replaced with the lemon juice. So mango chutney is one of the better known product in also other countries. So apricot chutney is another popular product, and so is apple chutney. So the fruit or vegetables are basically cut into slices or pieces of whatever size, and they are softened by boiling into the water. And then once they are softened, slow cooking at a temperature which is below the boiling point, that will result into a better product than heating it a very high temperature. Okay, because you will then lose also flavoring compound. Then onion, garlic, they can be added to mellow the strong flavor. Suppose you don't want that onion and garlic strong flavor, so that can be added. Spices are coarsely powdered and then they are added to these products. Sometimes vinegar extract of spices is also used instead of whole spices. So spices as well as vinegar extract should be added just a little before the final stage of boiling. I I know that in food processing laboratory we have these practical. So because in the next week onward, I will be taking your food processing laboratory, and I will put up the syllabus and some of the experiments that I will be covering on Google Classroom, because I have finished with my MTech students all theory classes. So the next week onwards, I will completely start with this and in that chutney, sauces and pickles is also one of the practical. Okay, so because of this vinegar extract or spices are just added before the final stage of boiling, because otherwise during this prolonged boiling, what will happen, the essential oils and the flavoring compound that are present in the spices, you will lose upon them. Okay, because of the volatilization. So then next comes is your cooking process. So sweet chutneys like mangoes, apricots and apple, they could be very similarly cooked near to the consistency of jam to avoid the fermentation, and these chutneys could be used for long, okay, during storage. And when the vinegar is used in a large quantity, the amount of sugar should be reduced correspondingly, because vinegar itself serves as a preservative, so you don't have to add a lot of sugar. Or of course it should be palatable and it should be acceptable. Then once this is cooked and the spices and everything is added, bottling is carried out. So only clean and dry bottles and jars are which are earlier sterilized in the boiling water should be used, and they should be warm when you are filling, so that the contamination before the filling is not occurred. So if the bottle and the jars are not properly clean, the fermentation will take place, and then you will lose upon you the chutney. Okay, so it is safer to pasteurize also the filled chutney bottles by scaling them at around 82 degrees Celsius for almost 30 minutes. Okay, if the size of the bottle is around 0.5 kg. Okay, so what are the various equipments that are used? So equipment made up of iron, copper should not be used. Why? Because these techniques are like mango. When you use raw mango, so mango has the acid, or tomato or any other product. So iron and copper should not be used, as they are acted upon by vinegar. So for the small amount of these metals also could be dissolved in oil, and these dissolved compound acts as catalytic agents for the development of rancidity. You must have studied in chemistry of food constituent that oil, because in pickle or chutneys oil is added. So if these particles of the metal leaches, they will cause a development of rancidity in the product, and these metal also form black compounds with the tannins and fruits and the spices, like the spices that we use like mustard powder or clove oil or any spices. So spices contains this tannin, so these metals form a black compound with the tannin, and thereby they adversely affect not only taste but also the color, also the flavor, and also health wise also this is not good. Okay, so the vessels that are used for cooking should be glass lined, or they should be made up of stainless steel, and stainless steel is most commonly used utensil. So Copper utensils freshly tinned adequately can also be used without any risk. But of course, there should be a layer. Okay. So there are variety of recipes. I'm sure in the food processing laboratory we are going to learn some of the recipes. But for your reference, I have just given some of the recipes that are very commonly prepared. But this is not restricted. The recipe could be exclusively our own innovative ideas. So just mango slices or shreds are taken. This is for 1 kg of mango slices. Sugar or jaggery is also very commonly used. So 1 kg of jaggery or good or sugar can be used. Salt around 45 gram for 1 kg of mangoes. Onion chopped 50 gram. Garlic 15 gram. Ginger 15 gram. And red chili powder 10 gram. Black pepper, cardamom large, cinnamon, cumin, aniseed or 10 gram each you can take, and likewise vinegar 170 ml. So you just follow the procedure like cooking of everything and then grinding and pack it in the bottle. Then mature mangoes could be also used in another recipe, very similar. Washing, peeling, grating or slicing, cooking with a little water to make highly soft, mixing with sugar and salt and leaving for an hour, keeping all ingredient except vinegar in cloth bag so that all spices doesn't come. But some people do add powdered spices also to make it more spicier. So this is called as a spice bag. So it is tied loosely, putting in mixture and cooking on low. So like tomato ketchup, tomato chutneys, when we prepare in the laboratory we follow this recipe. So instead of mangoes we have tomatoes or pumpkin. So during cooking, spices bag pressed occasionally so that all the oleoresin spices extracted out. So cooking to consistency of jam up to 105 degrees Celsius with occasional stirring so that it doesn't burn, and removal of spice bag after the squeezing and addition of vinegar. Cooking for 2 to 5 minutes and then filling hot and dry sterilized bottle and then sealing and keeping in a cool and dry place. Okay. But in addition to that, there are other recipes also. Again, these are for reference. And as an assignment, I'm going to add, few more that you have to innovatively add in the list. Okay, these recipes I have taken from Fruit and Vegetable Preservation of Fruit and Vegetable book by Girdhari Lala and Siddhappa. Okay. So apple chutney. So here in this chutney, the recipe is in front of you. So apple, this is around 18.1 kg, 18.1 kg, and you can use the raisins also 9 kg. Onion powder to add the sweetness. Onion powder, sugar, salt, cassia, the spice, pimento, nutmeg, caramel, acetic acid, or you can use the vinegar also. Okay, glacial acetic acid. And one can peel and core and slice the apple and cook all the slices locked with these other ingredient, and the spices could be put it in the cloth bag. So likewise each recipe only the ingredient will vary in certain concentration. So the same recipe is the recipe 2. Instead of that these so many nutmeg, pimento means it's a red chili powder, okay, which will give you a red color. Maize, or what we call maize, patta. So these all are replaced here with only this is a hot chili, like it's a very pungent, whereas this pimento is like only give red color. So this is here ginger was missing in this, but in this ginger is added, onion and garlic and salt. Very simple recipe, but it doesn't have all these spices. And likewise bamboo chutney could be also prepared. So bamboo chutney or tender bamboo shoots make a very sweet chutney. So bamboo shoots are selected and remove the outer leaves, and the tender portion is cut into small pieces, and then they are boiled into the water twice or thrice to remove, all the poisonous bitter principle or tannins or polyphenol or whatever it is there for half an hour, and then this is minced in the boiled pieces. So lemon peel chutney is also very famous, in which the lemon peels are boiled and cooked along with the green chilies, and then garlic, onion, and salt could be added and ground into paste. So that is called as a lemon chutney. Okay, so apricot chutney can also be prepared by following this. So in any recipe you see either the sugar, salt, and spices and chili powder. So very similar to jam recipe, except for the addition of spices and vinegar. Okay. So there are so many recipes in the book, like sweet mango chutney. So I will be discussing all these in detail in food processing laboratory, like plum chutney and all these recipe. Tomato chutney, like tomato chutney is most common and most famous, in which tomatoes like 13 kg tomatoes are taken, onions, sugar, salt, ginger, chilies, and garlic vinegar, in which garlic is extracted. So tomatoes are generally peeled by blanching. So you take whole tomatoes and blanch them so that the skin is loosened, and place all the ingredients except the vinegar in a pan and cook to a thick consistency. Of course, these spices could be put into the a spice bag. Okay, and then you squeeze it and add the vinegar, cook for another 5 minutes, and pack the finished chutney in a glass bottles, okay, which are already sterilized. Chutneys can also be made from fruits, like as I said before, dates. uh, Especially in some of the parts of the country, dates are used for making chutneys. Bananas, papayas, they are all used by adopting slight modification in the recipe, in which spices, sugar, salt, chili, ginger, garlic, onion, and these ingredients could be little bit modified. Okay, but the recipe is very similar. So we will also study during the theory class the sauces, and in the sauces there are two types, like thin sauces and thick sauces. The thin sauce is like your most commonly and most famous one is a soya sauce. Soya sauce is basically, you might not have seen soya sauce company, but when I visited China, China's multinational company, wherein soya sauce was made. So literally, soya sauce is made from the soya bean, and also sometimes soya bean processing industry. Lot of waste is there. From that waste also it can be made. So basically, soya sauce is made from soya bean, and the sauce has usually a very predominant salty taste because of a lot of salt that is being used and a lot of fermentation, and it has a very dark brown color, and it is made by cooking soya beans and wheat. Basically these are fermented, then they are allowed the mass to undergo the fermentation by molds, and it is the fermentation for almost 5 to 6 days. And once these cooked wheat and soybean mass, which is fermented, the moldy mass, then it is mixed with the strong brine. Okay, brine means salt solution, and that is why the soya sauce is very salty. The brine solution that is used is almost 20%, 15 to 20% to form a mash. Okay, and that mash is filled into wooden barrels to again cause bacteriological changes, chemical changes, nutritional changes, flavor changes, and there again in the presence of a very high concentration of salt, and in due course of time a very thick brown liquid is formed. I have some videos I have clicked during those time when I visited. I will try to share those videos with you. So the thick brown liquid is formed, and then it is diluted with the appropriate consistency, as per the requirement. So it is boiled and then filtered, and to this filtered liquid molasses can be also added to improve further flavor, and then this finished product is known as soya sauce, and it is bottled as an usual way. So this high concentration of salt in the medium that is used during fermentation, what it does, basically it prevents the harmful microbial fermentation. So only it will allow the growth of specific bacteria or the microorganism. And then there are a lot of changes that take place in the soya sauce, and soya sauce has a very different taste. So it's a highly popular product, although in India it is recently getting popular, like people like soya sauce in variety of products like hakka noodle, Chinese products basically. So but it is very famous in China, Japan and far east countries. Okay, so it is considered not to be not only a relish but also a nutrition product. At least I have seen in Japan and China, they eat this product a lot, like highly concentrated. And you will not believe, in India what we get is a very diluted product. Like it is not even the original soya sauce. The one that is there in Japan and China is a very strong, and very strong in the taste. So because of the nutritious also, because it is prepared from the protein hydrolysis of the soya bean, so that is why it is rich in protein. And also it is used from the whole wheat soya bean, so it is also rich in the fat, which is mufa and pufa. So soya sauce is becoming nowadays popular in our country too, but the one that is there is not original taste of China and Japan. So there is a huge scope for India also to develop variety of indigenous material, like instead of using soya bean, because see in China, Japan they use soya bean. Why? Because they have that production of soya beans, they are very high. But in India we do have horse gram. We have peanuts, we have mung bean, we have groundnuts, chickpeas. So can you think of using this material and improve this method of fermentation? I'm just giving you an idea. Okay, this is just a suggestion. And introducing these, the same protocol that is being used in Japan. I have seen like a big, pits, or they dig it and they put all this mass and they spread it, and allow it. Literally, it's a very nice procedure. So if we can adopt and use our local ingredients for production of indigenous sauces, like instead of soya sauce, can you say green gram sauce or peanut sauce? Can you say that? I don't know. Okay. So this is just an idea that came into my mind. Okay. So next, let's move to the, see, for sauces, there are a lot of recipes that I will cover later on, like mushroom soya sauce or mushroom ketchups. Then, as I said, there are thick and thin sauces. So in India, thick sauces are very famous. Like we use them along with eating with the samosa. You use thick sauces. Okay, so they contain basically more sugar, less acid, and the spices, colors are added. The one that you get in the market, like thick ketchups and thick sauces. Okay, so as for the FSSI standard, it should contain 3% acetic acid to ensure its keeping quality, and the acidity should not be exceeding 3.4%. Otherwise, what will happen? The sauce would taste very sharp acidic taste, and which will not be acceptable. And the sugar is generally used is 15 to 30% according to the kind of sauce made. Like if the fruit is already used, plum for example, and if it is already sweet, or apple, if it is already sweet, you have to modify the sugar. Okay. And in addition to contributing to acidity of salt, addition of vinegar also improves the flavor. The sweetness is derived from sugar added and also the natural fruit sugar that comes into. Okay, so there are a lot of recipes that I will share with you later on, like apple sauce, tomato sauce, variety of fruit sauces. You can use, variety of fruit sauces, like as I said, pumpkin, papaya, and ashwood, etc., etc. Okay, so let's move to pickles. The process of preservation of fruits and vegetable pieces in common salt or in vinegar is called as a pickling. So if I ask you what is the process or procedure of pickling, pickling is nothing but it is the preservation method in which the fruits of the pieces of fruits or vegetable are preserved in salt and sugar. Okay, and additionally spices, edible oil, they are added to the product. So again, as I said, pickles of variety of kind are known throughout the India and also in many parts of the world. And typical Indian pickles that are made are, just to list, I'm sure in your home also must be at least 3 to 4 variety of pickles. Mango, lemon, turnip, cabbage, cauliflower, chili, carrot, etc. And they have become popular in several countries also, and there is a wide and they are growing. Their export market is growing for such product associated. Because at least I have seen, Germany, there will be stores wherein, in fact, European would love these pickles than us, and any country, even South America or Japan, everywhere. So these pickles are, why do we consume pickles? Because they are very good appetizers. They add the palatability of the meal. They add the digestion. See, there is a health benefits, and they are fermented because they have, these bacteria also, good bacteria. So at least, India, the type of pickle that we consume, the taste that we consume is totally different. In China, some of the pickles that I tasted were preserved for 25 and 30 years, like they were so old. And of course the salt concentration that they use in China is a very 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 little. Of course, the almost, the vegetable that or the fruit that you taste is completely fermented taste. Like we, yeah, at least, in India we have 15 to 20% of salt, so therefore, it doesn't get so much fermented. But in the places, other countries that where I have tasted this fermented product, they were very very different in taste. So Indian pickles, like they are very very popular and they are gaining export market for these products which are associated with Indian condiments. Like India is famous in the whole world for the variety of spices. The kind of spices that we get in India you will not find anywhere. So pickles are like there are multiple number of health benefits. Different kind of pickles contain variety of nutrients depending upon the raw material that is used, like for the preparation method. So the food value of a cucumber pickle exceeds that of eggs, rice, fresh onion, and fresh tomato. And different kind of pickles are made in several Indian homes in a large quantity, like almost, 20 kg, 30 kg. People make, and they store it for 1 year. And pickles are also manufactured on large scale and exported to other countries. In Indian pickles, oil, in oil, mustard oil, rapeseed oil, sesame oil, they are generally used, but other oil can also be used. Some pickles are also made by addition of lime juice, and pickles are made to resemble the imported pickles which are made in vinegar. Of course, so you will definitely agree that the vinegar that is added in a very large quantity, of course, they add into the preservation, but they doesn't taste so good. So onion pickle in clear spiced vinegar belongs to the this later category. Okay, so there are variety of problems that we will understand here. Okay, so the changes that take place during pickling on account of acidity. So basically what will happen, The acidity only plays a very important. So acidity of microorganism depends on largely the composition of the fruit or the vegetable. So yeast and mold, you all know that they can grow in the presence of even acid. Okay, so thus the fruits and the acidic vegetable, like there are some like tomato or mango. So vegetables spoil either by yeast fermentation or by the growth of mold. So as acidity is not favorable for the growth of these putrefactive bacteria, fruits and vegetables are not generally spoiled by them. So the decay of the vegetable which have very little or maybe sometimes no acid in them, the spoilage is basically because of the action of the bacteria. And when we say preservation of pickle, in the preservation of pickle, the desired fermentation is brought about the action of lactic acid bacteria. Okay, that I mentioned you, and that is also a health benefit. So there are bacteria called as lactic acid forming bacteria which are capable of growing even in acidic medium. Okay, so they differ uh, in forming the putrefactive bacteria. Okay, so which cause decay of fruits and vegetable, but in this case these bacteria will enhance the flavor. Okay, so there are basically two methods of preservation of fruits and vegetable. Number one is by killing all the microorganisms which are responsible for spoilage, and by heat or other means, and then checking the entry of fresh organism into the preserved product. By the second way means by making the conditions most unfavorable for the growth and multiplication of microorganism. Okay, so basically this first method is generally employed in the preservation of fruit and vegetable, and generally the second one that I am talking about is in the preparation of pickle. So what is the action of preservatives? Okay, so we mostly salt is the major ingredient. Salt, vinegar, and acetic acid are the three most important ingredients that are used during the pickling. So these substances, when used in sufficient quantity, is very important. If you use the salt very little, it will spoil the pickle will spoil. It will not remain for a longer period. Okay, so this if it you these ingredients are used in sufficient quantity, they acts as a preservative. So the action of preservation has a multiple role that I will discuss in detail in the upcoming slide, but they have either a action of preservation either singly or in combination. Okay, so salt. So what is the role of salt? Okay. So vegetables do not ferment when they are covered with a strong brine or they are packed with a very large quantity of salt. So basically the spoilage is prevented by addition of a sufficient quantity of edible salt or common salt. Okay. So when you add the concentration of salt is added, the quantity is added in such a level that the final concentration in the total mixture is about 15 to 20%. Okay, and at this a very high, this is a very high concentration, the molds and even lactic acid bacteria cannot grow. Okay, so this method of preservation is applicable only to vegetable which contain very little sugar, because otherwise what will happen, the sugar fermentation will cause. Okay, sufficient lactic acid cannot be formed by fermentation to act as a preservative. The next preservative action is because of the use of vinegar. So in vinegar pickles, vinegar acts as a preservative. So in order to ensure a very good and satisfactory results, the final concentration of acid or the acetic acid in the final formulation or finished pickle, it should not be less than 2%. Okay, to avoid the dilution of the vinegar by the water that is liberated from the tissue. We all know that, suppose on the first day you have those mango pickles, and there is also, raw mangoes pickles. So there is a water. So this water is liberated from the tissue, and the vegetables are then generally placed in the strong vinegar, and the percentage concentration is about 10% of acidity for several days before the final packing. And there are a lot of changes that take place during this fermentation, and this treatment basically helps in, we have already studied that the vegetable has intracellular vacuoles or the gases. So during these fermentation period, the gases expels out that are present in the intercellular spaces of vegetable tissues, and they also prevent subsequent dilution of vinegar in the pickle. Then the next and very important ingredient that helps in preservation is lactic acid bacteria. So basically bacteria prefer for their growth material with little or no acid, and the lactic acid bacteria, therefore we all know that they can grow in acidic medium. Also they can also produce their own acid through the substrate action, like they will utilize the substrate and they will produce the acid. So this is a very known phenomena. So this bacteria can grow in the presence of even up to 8 to 10% of the salt. Therefore we are using quite a high percentage, like 15 to 20%. So advantage is taken of these two factors in pickling. Like these are the two advantages. Like the growth of these undesirable organism is inhibited because of the salt, like 15 to 20%, while the lactic acid bacteria are allowed to grow, and they should cause the fermentation of the substrate to give rise to enhanced flavor, aroma, and taste. So when vegetables are placed in brine means a salt solution. Okay, so the soluble material that is present in the fruits or the pieces of vegetable, they diffuses into the salt, and this result into causing osmosis. What is osmosis? We know that in the osmosis, the liquid penetrates into the tissues because there is outside the salt concentration, and inside the tissue there is a less salt. So because of this osmosis, the salt penetrates and take out the water. The soluble material containing mineral matter uh, and this mineral matter, also fermentable sugars also. Okay, so these sugars serves as the food for lactic acid bacteria, and these then lactic acid bacteria convert them into lactic acid and other volatile. We have studied much a lot about fermentation and how the lactic acid bacteria act on the substrate and produces volatile acid, lactic acid, etc. Okay, so usually when you have a 2 to 3 kg of salt is generally mixed with every 100 kg of material of fruit. Okay, and the mixture is allowed to stand for around 24 hours. When sufficient juice is comes out because of the osmosis from the material, and that is called as a brine, to form the brine. And if the vegetable does not contain a sufficient amount of juice or sufficient amount of water, then it is covered with the addition of prepared brine solution containing 5% of the salt. The soluble soluble that are extracted, they are fermented by lactic acid bacteria, and then they are generally present in large quantity on the naturally surface of the fresh fruit vegetable, like naturally present, and they will result into the fermentation. So when these lactic acid bacteria or lactic acid bacteria produces this lactic acid in sufficient quantity, the lactic acid bacteria cease to function, and any further changes in the composition of the material is prevented. Okay. Although these pickles you can say that they are ready for consumption, precaution should be taken to save it from the spoilage, and the spoilage could be because of the aerobic microorganism. Uh, the presence of salt, the presence of lactic acid bacteria, that is, or lactic acid formed, they help in the preservation of pickle by preventing the growth of other bacteria such as putrefaciente bacteria, provided air is excluded. Otherwise, if you keep the pickle bottle open in the air, it will get spoiled. So in the presence of air, pickle scum is formed. Scum is nothing but the growth of these bacteria. So this pickle scum is formed and it destroys the lactic acid bacteria and it results into a putrefaction. So the acid brine that is formed during pickling acts upon the vegetable tissue and it produces the characteristic taste and characteristic aroma to the pickle. So the temperature is a very important factor for successful lactic acid bacteria fermentation. So you all know that the lactic acid bacteria are most active at a temperature of about 30 degrees Celsius or so. Therefore, it is very essential that the temperature of the prepared pickle uh, should is going undergoing the lactic acid fermentation, and it is the material is kept at 30 degrees Celsius to cause the required fermentation. So the raw materials used in pickling should possess certain characteristics. I will quickly discuss about the while choosing the raw material, what is the quality criteria or characteristics that one need to. So salt. So for pickling, variety of common salts are suitable, provided of course the purity. The moment you use the salt which is originally contaminated or originally has lot of dust, and if they are not pure, it will cause the spoilage. Okay. So it should not contain more than 1% of impurities, nor it should contain chemicals like tricalcium phosphate or magnesium phosphate. So these tricalcium phosphate or magnesium phosphates are used or generally added to the salt to reduce its caking. Like you see the free flowing salt ad that are shown in the TV, wherein they show that they doesn't cake, like they are like very free flowing nowadays. So I have never seen the salt that is that cakes, but uh, in the childhood I have seen some of the brands which were very pure, so the salt always used to cake. But nowadays I see none of the salt gets cake to cook. So it's because of the use of a tricalcium phosphate or magnesium phosphate that are used. Salt should be additionally free from lime. Okay. So as the lime is added, as it reduces the acidity of the vinegar in which brined vegetables are pickled, and also sometimes they causes the deposition of lime on the bottom of the container. So the salt should also be free from iron. It should be free from, otherwise what will happen if there is an iron particle, the tannin of the fruit or the vegetable or the spices, they will cause the darkening or blackening of the pickle. It should not also contain magnesium salt. So this magnesium, we know that this magnesium salt imparts a bitter taste to the pickle. So in additionally, carbonates being alkaline, they lower the acidity of the pickle and also make the pickle very soft in texture. So when you are using the salt,